מנחם מנדל בן אברהם מאיר וטויבה רבקה זיכרונם לברכה, וצבי החיה בת אריה לב וחווה עידה זיכרונם לברכה, Mel and Sylvia David, by their family, by their children, and by their משפחות, so זה יהיה לעילוי נשמה. Okay, so we are on, if I'm not mistaken, we are with the Rambam. Rambam הלכות תשובה פרק ב' הלכה ח'? I think so. Yeah, we spoke about these two ladies, you remember, that were judged, and one said, please give me a necklace of pagei shvit so everyone would know why I was punished and that they would not think that I am like the other lady. Okay. So, what page? There are no page numbers, so that's the problem. So it's not the first, it's not the second, it's not the third, it's not the fourth, it's the fifth. Okay. So the Rambam is like in the middle of the page. Everyone has it? Or no one? Okay. הלכות תשובה, פרק ב' הלכה ח'. Okay. הוידוי שנהגו בו כל ישראל, so the vidui that all the Jewish communities has the custom to do is, אבל אנחנו חטאנו, that we committed a sin, והוא עיקר הוידוי. And this is the main part of וידוי. עבירות שהתוודע עליהם ביום כיפורים זה, עבירות that you already confess this יום כיפור, חוזר ומתוודה עליהם ביום הכיפורים אחר. אף על פי שהוא עומד בתשובתו שנאמר, כי פשעי אני אדע וחטאתי נגדי תמיד. Which means the Rambam is asking what? That even though you did not commit the same sins from last year, you still need to what? To confess them. And why? The Rambam holds like this psychological opinion, as we said last week. It's a good thing to what? To have a constant reminder, a daily reminder, that you committed a sin. So it will deter you not to do it again, but at the same time, it can be also an encouragement for you. Look, I did it last year, I confessed, and I did tshuva, which means it can be done. I can overcome it. And therefore, the Rambam says, you need to do it, and you need to have כי פשעי אני אדע, וחטאתי נגדי תמיד. So my sin is in front of me always. Says the Tur. So the Tur, it's Rabbi Yaakov Baal HaTurim, it's the son of the Rosh. We are talking about the 14th century in Spain. And he says the following. ועיקר הוידוי הוא אבל אנחנו חטאנו. So the main thing of the וידוי is אנחנו חטאנו, אבל אנחנו חטאנו, אלא שנהגו לומר גם שאר דברים. But there is a custom to say other things as well, such as, מה נאמר לפניך, יושב מרום, what can we tell you? You know everything. אתה יודע רזי עולם, you know all the secrets of the world. ועל חטא ועל חטאים ואלוקי עד שלא נוצרתי. All the וידוי that we say here. ובאשכנז נוהגים לומר על חטא, על סדר אלפא בטא, ומפרטים בו החטאים. So in Ashkenaz we do al chet and we mention chataim based on the aleph bet. By the way, how do you think Rabbi Yaakov Baal HaTurim, who was the son of the Rosh, who lives in Spain, knows about Minagei Ashkenaz? So this is an interesting thing.
And maybe they escaped to Spain.
Commercial contact.
Travelers.
Very, very simple. If we know history, it's very simple. The Rosh, his father, was a Talmid of the Maharam Rothenburg. You know, Rothenburg is definitely not in Spain. Okay, that's Germany. The Maharam Rothenburg was caught, according to the tradition, he was caught, was in prison, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, understood what's going on in Germany, and he realized where it's going. He fled Germany in 1305, and he fled to where? To Spain. The Rashba, who was in Spain, saw a great scholar in front of him, and he says, okay, you're going to be a chief rabbi. And then some of his children were already born in Germany, and some of them were born in Spain. Rabbi Yaakov Baal HaTurim, even though he was in Spain and he was the son of the Rosh made sure to bring all the traditions from Ashkenaz that he got from his Rabbi, Maharam Rothenburg, who received it from whom? From Rabbi Yechiel Paris. Rabbi Yechiel from Paris was the Maharam Rothenburg's Rabbi, and the Rosh did everything he could in order to maintain the Ashkenazic traditions. We know that he had his own shul, and he always had arguments with the Sephardi Jews to tell them how wrong they are. And they told him how wrong you are. And you can see in his tshuvot that he's trying to convince them, to tell them what you are doing is wrong, and they tell him, with all due respect, the tradition belongs to us. We are the Spanish Jews that came here from Hagolah Shehugleta, and we are here for generations, and we have the traditions, and we have the Rif and the Rambam, and who are you? But Rabbi Yaakov Baal HaTurim, you see here again that he got those traditions from his father, from the Rosh. And then later on, like everything else, traditions became, there's some kind of a reciprocity between traditions, but the Rosh made sure to bring these traditions of the Ashkenazic tradition to Spain. So he says that in Ashkenaz they did it. By the way, as you can understand from here, that the Sephardi Jews in the 14th century didn't do it. Their Vidui was different. And we spoke about it a little bit last week, that sometimes we feel like we are making up sins in order to what? To fill up the Aleph Bet. Not that it's so difficult to find sins, but I'm talking about to try to match them to the Aleph Bet, okay? So the idea is, Sikur Ain, with Shin, with like sin, which is like for the Samech. It sounds like almost like the Asher Asher Betecha, there is no Nun, there is no Nefilah, God forbid, so there is Somech Hashem Lechol HaNoflim. So we try to create this list of sins for the Aleph Bet. So that's from Ashkenaz. And then he says, והרי כתב שצריך לפרט החטא, ובספרד אין נוהגים לאומרו. Again, another distinction between מנהגי ספרד and מנהגי אשכנז. In מנהגי אשכנז, the Ri, who is the Ri? Rabbi Yitzchak Midampier. He's from France. He was a grandson. He was a grandson. He was a grandson to Rashi, and he was a very, very famous Baal Tosfot in the 12th century. So he says, he brings the tradition, he says, צריך לפרט החטא. You need to what? To detail the sin. בספרד אין נוהגים לאומרו, וכן נראה שאין צריך לפרט החטא. He says, you know what? In Sfarad, in Spain, they do not detail the sin, and you know what? It's probably better not to. שרבי עקיבא אומר שאין צריך לפרט החטא והלכתה כדבריו. Says, because Rabbi Akiva says what? That you do not need to detail the sin, but rather you just need to mention it, but not to go into details, because it can cause you to sink into the depth of the sin, and therefore we need to make the halacha like what he says. וצריך להתוודות מעומד. And when you confess, you need to what? To stand up, ואפילו כי שמע למשץ והוא התוודה כבר, צריך לעמוד. So obviously when you do your individual confession, you stand, but also when you hear it from the Chazan, you can't stand, you need to what? To stand up. Now obviously if you can't stand, that is something else, but if you can stand, you stand. והעוונות שהתוודה עליהם ביום הכיפורים שעבר ולא שנה עליהם, and sins that you did last year but you didn't repeat this year, כתב הריץ גיאת שאין להתוודות עליהם. So the Ritz Giat says that you shouldn't confess on them again, אלא אם גנב או גזל והתוודה עליהם בשנה שעבר, יאמר במקום גנבתי, גאלתי בדרכי, שהוא דרך כלל. וכן בכל הפרטים יש לשנות בעניין זה כשיצטרך. So he says, if you, for example, stole or you committed some kind of thievery last year and you didn't do it again, so you can say, במקום גנבתי, גאלתי בדרכי, שהוא דרך כלל. Meaning, נגנב, נגאל, meaning not me, but it was done, באופן כללי. And he says, וכן בכל הפרטים, יש לשנות בעניין זה כשיצטרך. You can change the language that it will fit really your situation. Yes? Mm-hmm.
We're not speaking about ourselves, we're speaking about our community.
Right, that's the אשמנו, but על חטא שחטאתי לפניך. Yeah, later on, על חטא, it's my own individual חטא. והני מילי כשמתפלל בינו לבין עצמו, אבל כשאומר עם הציבור, אין לחוש שאי אפשר שלא יהיה אחד מן הציבור שגנב או גזל. So he says when you do the repetition, and then you say, על חטא שגנבנו או גזלנו, then you can make sure, you can be sure that what? That you don't say it in vain, because someone from the ציבור definitely is a גנב. Yes. כן, אבל אחרי זה, הפירוט החטא זה הפירוט האישי. That's what it means. Okay, so that's what the Tur says. So the Tur does not exactly agree with the Rambam. So the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, says the following. ומה שכתב וכן נראה שאין צריך לפרט החטא, what he says that you don't need to detail the חטא, שרבי עקיבא אומר שאין צריך לפרט החטא והלכה כדבריו. So he brings this, we saw it already, בפרק בתרא דיומא, הפליגו רבי יהודה בן בבא ורבי עקיבא במילתא. רבי יהודה בן בבא says that you need to be מפרט החטא, that you need to detail the sin, and רבי עקיבא says you do not, ומשמע ודאי, דקיימא לן כרבי עקיבא, דהלכה כרבי עקיבא מחברו, because we know that there are כללים in הלכה. Okay, הלכה כרבי עקיבא מחברו, that's what the Gemara says also in Eruvin, that when you have a debate between Rabbi Akiva and his colleague, you side with whom? With Rabbi Akiva. So if that's Rabbi Akiva against Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, you follow whom? Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva says that you do not need to what? To detail the sin. אלא שהרמב"ם בפרק ב' מלכות תשובה פסק כרבי יהודה בן בבא. But he says the problem is that the Rambam was passing like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, which means you need to detail the sin, but that's against the halachic formula. So what do you do with it? Everyone's with me with the question? No. Okay. We have a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Akiva regarding the question, do you need to detail the sin? Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says yes, Rabbi Akiva says no. The klalim, the rules of psika is, when you have a debate between Rabbi Akiva and his friend, you follow Rabbi Akiva, which means you do not need to detail the sin. That's what the Tur was passing. Problem? The Rambam. The Rambam made the psak like Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva says that you do not need to detail the sin. No, Rabbi Akiva. The Rambam passing like Rabbi Akiva that you do not need to detail the sin. Sorry, he was passing like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava that you need to detail the sin, and this is obviously against the formula, the halachic formula. I hope that now we all understand after my confusion. ונראה שטעמו, so he says that it seems to be that the reason that the Rambam was passing like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, משום דברייתא החייתא, because there is another brayta that says, צריך לפרט החטא, that you need to what? To detail the sin, שנאמר, because it says, ענה חטא העם הזה חטאה גדולה ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב, דברי רבי יהודה בן בבא, רבי עקיבא אומר אשרי נשוי פשע כסוי חטאה. אלא מהו שאמר משה ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב, כדרבי ינאי. דאמר רבי ינאי, אמר משה לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, כסף וזהב שירבט על לבני ישראל עד שאמרו די, גרם להם שיעשו אלוהי זהב. So he says because there is a brayta that says that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava learned it from what? From the pasuk, ענה חטא העם הזה חטאה גדולה, oh, this nation committed a terrible sin, and what was the sin? ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב, and they did for them what? A golden calf, which means they detailed the sin. They didn't say just a great sin, they said what was the sin. Rabbi Akiva says no, he is taking the pasuk אלוהי זהב, gods of gold, he says, oh God, it's because of you caused them to commit the sin. Okay, we know, by the way, who else accused God that he is the reason for the Jewish people's sins? Moshe. This is here, but one more. Here, Moshe, but more than one more. One more. Someone else in Tanakh who also accused God in being the cause of our faults. Hmm? Hmm? Do you want a hint? To what? Okay, I'll give you a hint. Carmel. Eliyahu. What's the pasuk? Now we'll see. ואתה הסיבות את ליבם אחורנית. You is the one who basically allow them or help them to basically not to believe in you. Why? Eliyahu says, because look at them. They worship idols and they worship you, and you don't punish them. You don't do anything to them. So they think it's what? It's fine, it's okay. So therefore, you God, hasibota, you deviated, or you helped them to go astray, et libam achoranit. Yep, okay. That's a different story, that's a different class. And Braita is a Tanaic source. Now, Braita is from the word bara, achutza, which means it's not part of the text of the Mishnah, the codex of the Mishnayot, but it's still a Tanaic source. But then he continues, and he says, אמר רב יהודה רב רמי כתיב אשרי נשוי פשע כסוי חטא וכתיב מכסה פשעיו לא יצליח לא קשיא כאן בחטא מפורסם כאן בחטא שאינו מפורסם כרבי יהודה בן בבא אז לה דאילו לרבי עקיבא אפילו מפורסם נמי לו דעה עוון העגל מפורסם הוא ואפילו אחי אמר רבי עקיבא עליהם אשרי נשוי פשע כסוי חטאה ודריש לוי יעשו להם אלוהי זהב לדרשה אחריתה אלא ודאי כרבי יהודה בן בבא עתיה וכיוון דרב סבר כבתי הכי נקטינן. So I'm going to explain. What was our problem? Our problem was what the Rambam does not follow the halachic formula, right? He's passing like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava against Rabbi Akiva. Says Rabbi Yosef Karo, here there is an exception. What's the exception? First, there is a Braita, and the Braita basically seems to be that it aligns with Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. A. B. Rav created a contradiction between two psukim. The first pasuk says what? Ashrei nesui pesha, ksui chata. Praiseworthy is the person who cover his sin. The second pasuk is what? The second pasuk is mechase psha'av lo yatzliach. Someone who hides his sins would not be successful. No. So the Gemara says lo kashya, habi yachid, kan bechet mefursan, kan bechet sheino mefursan. Here, meaning you need to what? To say your sins with detail when it's chet mefursan, when it's public, so everyone knows, and when it's private, so just say I committed the sin. You don't need to go into the details. Now, he wants to claim, Rabbi Yosef Karo, that according to Rabbi Akiva, even if it's chet mefursam, like what? Like chet ha'egel, still Rabbi Akiva said what? That you don't detail it, which means, according to Rav, who came later, after Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Akiva, he holds that what? That bechet mefursam, you need to what? Detail the sin. This is exactly like whom? Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So the Rambam's calculation was like that. It's true. There is a halachic ruling. Rabbi Akiva and his friend, you go with Rabbi Akiva. However, for every rule you have what? An exception. And the exception is here. You have a Braita, you have a Tanaic source that supports Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. A. B. Rav, who was in the 3rd century after Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Akiva already are dead. He himself used Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava's methodology in order to reconcile contradiction between two psukim. Which means, it seems to be that we align with Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and not Rabbi Akiva. So it's true. Every time the Rambam is going to make the psak like Rabbi Akiva when he will have a debate with his colleague. But here, he saw that there is something else. Okay. So then he continues. ואף על גב דהי רומיה, דרמי רב, שני רב נחמן כאן בעבירות שבין אדם לחברו, כאן בעבירות שבין אדם למקום, והשינוי העתיה שפיר כרבי עקיבא, ופסק הרמב"ם עצמו כהי שינויה. So then, the Kesef Mishnah says, I'll be honest, there is a problem. The problem is that really, the way Rav solved the contradiction, it's not really the maskana, it's not the conclusion. The maskana the conclusion to resolve that contradiction between the two psukim is, כאן בין עבירות שבין אדם לחברו, וכאן בין עבירות שבין אדם למקום. And this solution can also work for Rabbi Akiva. Meaning I can say that Rabbi Akiva says, do not detail your sin when it comes to... It depends. You can look at that in two ways. But we can say that you should detail your sin in front of God. That will be probably the easiest thing. But in front of another person, don't, because he don't want to agitate him, okay? So you can still say that I can still find a solution for the contradiction according to Rabbi Akiva. And then you can say that the Tanaic source is only a Braita, so Rabbi Akiva will dismiss that Braita. So we will go back to the same question. But the Rabbi Yosef Karo says, no, that's the way we're going to solve the Rambam. מכל מקום סובר כיוון דרב יהודה, אמריו סבר דהלכה כרב יהודה בן בבא, הכי נקטינן. אבל הריף והראש לא כתבו דברי רב יהודה, אלא דברי רב נחמן בלבד, ומשמע דסבירא להו דהלכה כרבי עקיבא. Okay, so he basically tried to explain the machloket, the dispute between the Rishonim. The Rambam is passing like Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, but all the other Rishonim are passing like Rabbi Akiva. So he explained why the Rambam holds like Rabbi Akiva, but he's telling us that really the Rambam is an exception. Now, I can go an hour now to try to understand the Rambam, but I don't want to do it. What I want to do is to basically try to understand the hashkafic and the psychological debate between the Rambam and the others. Meaning, after I made my decision to follow Rabbi Akiva, so according to the Rambam, what do you need to do? You need to what? To repeat the sins that you did. Meaning, you need to repeat the confession on sins that you didn't do this year, A. B, you need to what? To detail the sin. Now, why is that so important for me? Because A, that's really what we do now. I don't know if you see it, but many people who come to daven on Yom Kippur, they come with a list. Some people come with a book. And some people come with a little tzetale, just to remind them a few things. Now, it's interesting. Some people take a printed list and they just choose from it what they did or what they didn't do or whatever it is. So it became almost like a common practice. But some people don't. And it's not about just being lazy or not. It's really, I think, about the mindset that you have when you come to make the confession. Look, we know that until you really dig truly to yourself, you will not be able to do tshuva, what we call it, let's call it tshuva shlema, or a genuine tshuva. Okay? So to touch the surface, it's nice, it's a beginning, it's something, but it's not going to really help you to become a better person. So more you dig, and more you know about yourself, and more truth you find about yourself, not necessarily that you're going to like it, but it will definitely help you to become a better person. The problem in the digging is what? That it's become very painful. And to some extent you will stop, or you will say, I will never be able to get out of it. It's too painful. So really we have a debate between the Tanaim already. What is the best way to deal with your chet? I'll be very honest, I love that there is a debate like that. And there is no final conclusion here. And you know why?
Varies on the person.
I think it's very subjective. What works for you, not necessarily going to work for me. And I think this is so important because there is no one way to do tshuva. Mamash lo. If someone tell you that there's one way to do tshuva, I don't know, whatever, you can think whatever you want. There is no, because the idea of tshuva, it's mamash tailor made for each one of us. People react differently to the truth. People react differently to faults and deficiencies, and people react differently if you're going to dictate to them and for them how exactly to do their own personal individual tshuva. You just can't do that. This is my opinion, by the way, just as a side note, why the Rambam does not say yesh mitzvah la'asot tshuva. It says keshe ya'aseh tshuva, when he will do tshuva, chayav li'tvadot, you must confess. Now, the Rambam is not against the mitzvah of tshuva, but the Rambam says it's hard for me to command you to do tshuva. You need to know that there is a commandment to return back to God, but it's up to you to do it. Now, when you do it, you need to confess. And the confession is what? Is the obligation, but it also helps you to what? To do tshuva. So I'm not surprised that there is a debate. I'm pretty happy this time that there is a debate, because it really, I think, shows the idea of the complexity of the tshuva and the subjectivity of tshuva. Okay. The Shulchan Aruch says, Rabbi Yosef Karo himself, עוונות שהתוודע עליהם ביום הכיפורים שעבר ולא שינה עליהם, which means sins that you did last year but you didn't repeat them, אפילו אחי יכול לחזור ולהתוודות עליהם. What does he say? You can if you want. You see? Again. He doesn't say חייב, he doesn't say רשאי, he says יכול, which means what? If you want, it's up to you. You want to bring them back? Bring them back. You think it will help you? Bring them back. You think it will be a terrible thing for you? Don't bring them back. You don't find too many times in Shulchan Aruch where he says יכול. You wish, but it does not exist. Okay? You would wish, יכול לשמור שבת היום אם הוא רוצה או לא רוצה, יכול להניח תפילין, יכול... It doesn't work like that. יש חובה או לא חובה, אסור או מותר. יכול. Now, also from the word יכול means that the basic assumption is what? That you shouldn't. But if you want, you can. Okay, so that's what Rabbi Yosef Karo. So now, we'll talk a little bit about Rav Soloveitchik. מדוע צריך להתוודות? Why do we need to confess? So he says the following, he says it in such a beautiful way. He says, כל אמוציה, רגש, כן? Every feeling, כל תחושה, every sense, רעיון, הרהור, a thought, מתבהרים לאדם ונתפסים על ידו, לאחר שהצליח לבטאם במשפטים בעלי מבנה הגיוני ודקדוקי. You can have the most brilliant thoughts in your mind. It will not be clear until what? You write them down, you say it, you verbalize it. כל כמה שאדם מתהלך ברעיונות סתומים, ויהיו סגיעים וסגיבים כאשר יהיו, כל זמן שלהוציאם מן הנסתר אל הנגלה, הם אחרים, שונים, נעלמים. He says a person can be a brilliant person and has incredible thoughts. But if he doesn't write them, say them, they will remain what? Thoughts. Only God would know, but that will end there. עקוב הלב מכל ואנוש הוא, מי ידענו? Yirmiyah says that the heart is עקוב, is like או מלשון עקב, או מלשון like not straight. אין ירמיהו מתכוון לומר שאין אדם יודע את שבלב זולתו ואין אחרים יודעים את שבקרב ליבו של אדם, אלא שהאדם עצמו אינו יודע מה מתרחש אף בליבו שלו, עד שהוא מגבש הרגשיו ורעיוניו ויוצקם לדפוסי ביטוי. This is interesting. He says it's not only for someone else, it's for you. Meaning, you could think that what? That I have my own thoughts, you don't know them, but it's good for me. I don't need to verbalize them. He says, no. For you. How many times, I don't, it's not group therapy, but just how many times you had a brilliant idea or a great idea, but you didn't act on it, and then you what? You lost it. I'm not talking about forgetting it. I'm talking about losing it. It was not clear, it was too abstract, and at the end of the day, it didn't come to fruition. Obviously, each one of us, I'm sure, has at least one time. הרהור תשובה מבלי שיבוא לכלל ביטוי שפה הוא נטול כל ערך. Which means just a thought. Without something that it's tangible, it's meaningless. יש דברים, הרבה, שאדם יודע אותם, הפוגע בהם, ובכל זאת לא ירהיב להעלותם על שפתיו. There are many things that a person knows them. He even think about it, study them, but he will never say it. Sometimes you talk to a person and he tells you about like a discussion or a debate he had with someone. He says, ואמרתי לו כך וכך, and I told him this and that. And you say, that's what you told him? No, in my head. In my head I told him. I said, so whenever someone says to me, he says, I hope he heard your head. Okay? If you didn't tell him that, he will never know. האדם עקשן בטבעו. A person in his nature is stubborn. בונה לו מחיצות בינו לבין עצמו, he builds מחיצות between him and himself, ומורד גם במציאות ובעובדות. And you rebel even against reality and facts. We have a defense mechanism for good or not for so good, and we are able to defend ourselves, thinking at least that we defend ourselves. באופן אינסטינקטיבי, in an instinctive way, אנו דוחים עובדות שאינן נעימות לנו. We reject facts that are not exactly pleasant for us.
Rational.
Yeah. Or as I think Nixon was the one to say, do not confuse me with facts. Right? I built my own reality and I don't need facts. הגמרא מספרת לנו, oh, this is a beautiful one. The Gemara tells us that כאשר מת רבינו הקדוש, when Rabbi יהודה הנשיא died, אמרו תלמידיו בשעת פטירתו, so his students said in his, at the time of his death, כל האומר רבי מת, ידקר בחרב. Everyone who says that our Rabbi died, we're going to stab him to death. הם ידעו כי רבי מת, they knew that Rabbi died, they knew that רבי יהודה הנשיא passed away, but אך קשה היה להם להאמין שמישהו יכול לבטא עובדה מרה זו. They couldn't believe that someone will tell them that truth, that straight into their face, your Rabbi died.
Sounds familiar.
So they knew, but they didn't dare saying that, internalizing it. Why? כי רבי, סמל החיים, רבי, not רבי, רבי יהודה הנשיא, was the symbol of life, סמל ההנהגה של תורה, a symbol of leadership of Torah וגדולה במקום אחד, Torah and wealth, אמנם מת. לדעת הוא דבר אחד, אבל לבטא ולאשר עובדה זו בניב שפתיים הוא משהו אחר. Knowing and saying, it's two totally different things. הם לא רצו לשמוע את העובדה המרה. They did not want to listen this bitter news. אלוקים ברא באדם מנגנון של הגנה עצמית. God created in us this defense mechanism, המאפשר לו להתעלם מן העובדות. That is allowing us to what? To ignore facts, לברוח מן המציאות, to run away from reality, לא להכיר בה, not to recognize the reality, ולא לראות דברים כמות שהם, and not to see things the way they are. יש שהאדם יודע מעל לכל ספק כי חטא והחטיא את מטרת חייו, כי בגד בכל ערכיו. There are times that a person knows, he has no doubts, that what? That he betrayed all his or her values. הוא יודע למה, he knows exactly why. אך אינו מוכן לומר זאת בפה מלא, או לשמוע זאת מפי אחרים. But he is not allowing others to tell him that, or he himself cannot just pronounce it. כל האומר ידקר, which means anyone who is going to tell me that Rabbi died, I'm going to stab him. Like, how is that going to change the reality? It just, what do? You just will suppress it. So if no one says it's true, it didn't happen. על משכבו בלילות הוא הוגה בכך. Now this is the very poetic language of Rav Soloveitchik. When he goes to sleep at night, he thinks about it. בינו לבין עצמו בוכייה נפשו במסתרים. The students, after their Rabbi died, they are crying at night and they are crying during the day, and they know, they long for the Rabbi. אך לאור היום בעיני אחרים, but in the middle of the day in front of others, הוא שמח וטוב לב. He's pretending to be okay. וכדי לחפות על האמת המנקרת בפנימיותו ומוסיף לחתו, and in order to what? To cover the truth, what does he do? He continued to dig the hole even deeper. מגביר את המרוץ ומוסיף לדהור במהירות אל עבר פתאום. He continued to race even faster, thinking that as fast as he can run from reality, it will never reach him. By the way, there is a very famous, I'll say it in 2 minutes. Do you know Shai Agnon? Okay, so Shai Agnon wrote, I think it's called סיפור פשוט, or the other one, I forgot. והיה יעקב למישור. Beautiful story. But in that story, if you know that, so stop me. So it's about a person who was, he was a little bit of a macher in the keilah. He was not wealthy, but he was okay, but they were childless. But then he will always, with whatever money he had, he bought things for the shul, for the rabbi, for the bet midrash, whatever. But then the muzzle went away and he lost a lot of his money, but he continued to buy gifts and to donate and everything until really there was nothing at home. His wife told him, no, באמת, אי אפשר ככה, you can't pretend like that anymore. We have no money for ourselves and you buy gifts. Go to the rabbi, he's a good friend of you, he knows you. He will write for you a letter of recommendation, you will collect some money, you come back, and maybe we can start a business again. He says, sure. The Rabbi hears his story and says, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, why didn't you tell me, blah, blah, blah. Gives him a wonderful letter of recommendation, okay? He says goodbye to his wife and he starts going to collect money in some of the cities, okay? He collects enough money, he stays in a little motel, and there another Jew finds him and says to him, no, Yid, מה אתה עושה פה? What are you doing? He says, oh, I came from that city and I am going now back home. I don't know, I have 2 weeks to walk or whatever it is. I made enough money. I have this letter of recommendation from this Rabbi who definitely helped me, so I'm going to say thank you. Blah, blah. So he says to him, so are you done? You don't need more money? He says, no. He says, you know what? Let me buy this letter from you. I'll pretend that me is you. You go home, you will have the money, and I will just use this letter from the Rabbi so I can also help myself. Says to him, okay, settle. So he sells him the letter of recommendation, and the problem is worse than that. He dies. The guy who bought the letter died. They find a dead person with a letter with the name of the other guy. The rumor gets to the city that he is dead, that the husband is dead. So the wife is becoming a what? A widow. From here to there, she gets married. 9 months later, there is a brit. At that day, he comes back. The husband, the original one. He comes back, not the dead guy. Yeah, the dead guy comes back. That's what the Gemara says, יבוא ההרוג ברגליו. The dead guy comes back. And he comes to the city and there is a celebration, there's festivity. He hears like, wow, there is a brit. And he asks me, who's brit? Oh, this lady, her husband died, she got remarried, and don't forget, they were childless. And he stands by the gates of the city. And Shai says that the question is, should he go in or should he go back? If he goes in, he's destroying her life and the life of the child and everything. And now, why I told you this story? There are so many lessons from that story. Live along Gemara in Yevamot. But the idea is they pretend. They pretended to continue to be as well off as they were before. Then they reached the Juta Tachtona, and it led them to where? To where this person was at the entrance of the gates of the city. So the idea of trying to pretend that nothing is wrong and trying to cover it up, and more you cover it, more you sink. הווידוי מכריח את האדם. The וידוי, I think it's called והיה יעקב למישור. והיה יעקב למישור. הווידוי מכריח את האדם. The vidui, the confession, basically forced the person, תוך ייסורים עצומים, through really afflictions, להכיר בעובדות כפשוטן. Facts are facts, you can't change them, it's not a matter of interpretation. לבטא בבהירות את האמת כמו שהיא, to express the truth the way it is. יש בכך גם משום קורבן. There is some kind of a self-sacrifice. משום שבירת הרצון וההליכה נגד הטבע, תוך כדי מחוב, because you break your will and you go against the nature through pain. יש בכך לא רק משום חרטה, it's not only about regret, אלא גם משום בושה, but also embarrassment. ותלמדנו השם אלוקינו להתוודות לפניך על כל עוונותינו. We say it in Ne'ilah. This is, by the way, a beautiful interpretation. We say in Ne'ilah, you, God, taught us to confess in front of you on all of our sins. Meaning you taught us to do what? To look at reality the way it is. להסתכל לאמת בפנים. By the way, now I'm just thinking, where did God see the reality and did not want to cover it up? Now, באמת, now I'm thinking, Give me one, two. I'll be nice. Two times in the Torah that there is a terrible reality and God sees the reality, face it, and start over. Not lot. Before. Before. Gan Eden starts with Adam v'Chava. Adam v'Chava, the facts are what? Adam and Chava failed. What did God do? He expelled them and says to them, okay, you have another goal, but I understand the reality is that I can't trust you. Okay, so I'm not going to trust you. I hope that someone else from your descendants will what? Will be able to come back. That's one. Second is Mabul. The Mabul, God sees the reality. He sees that there is no way to change the reality. He's not going to say, oh, they are not Meleim Hamas, they are Meleim Chesed veTorah. He's going to what? He's going to destroy it. What does it say about Hashem? Terrible, right? What, God didn't know? Yeah, that's the other questions. But there is a reality, and I'm going to face the reality. So, he says, ותלמדנו השם אלוקינו להתוודות לפניך על כל עוונותינו, להסתכל לאמת בפנים, to look at truth in the face, ישר לעיניים, straight to its eyes, להביט נכוחה, לשבור את מנגנון ההגנה העצמית, to break this self-defense that you have, לנתץ את המחיצות המלאכותיות, to break this artificial barriers between you and the reality, ללכת נגד הטבע האדם המצווה עליו להיחווה ולהסתתר, not to be like Adam and Chava, to hide, but rather what? Face reality, לקרוע את המסווה, to tear up this mask that you have, לגמור בפה מה שגמר קודם לכן הלב, to verbalize what you had in your heart, in your mouth, וכל זה למען נחדל מעושק ידינו, so that will help us to what? To stop doing what we do, ואז תקבלנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך כאישים וכניחוחים, and then you will accept us with תשובה like קורבנות. כשם שהקורבן נשרף על גבי המזבח, same way that the קורבן is being burnt on the מזבח, כך אנו שורפים במעשה הוידוי את שלוותנו המבוצרת. This is the way we burn our defense mechanism when we do תשובה and וידוי. את גאוותנו המטופחת, our being arrogant, את חיינו המלאכותיים, our artificial life, ואז ורק אז לפני השם תתארו. And only then and only then you can be purified by God. This is stuff. הוא לא עושה הנחות, it doesn't give you any discounts here. Okay, Rav Soloveitchik goes straight to the heart, ממש. He looks at וידוי as ממש קורבן. You burn your defense mechanism. Now, I don't know what is the meaning of a vidui that doesn't do it, that does not infiltrate every defense mechanism, and in Bichlal, can you do that? I do believe also that you can go so hard on yourself because then you will break. So I guess there is some kind of a balance, and again, it's very subjective, of how much truth you can hear, and in a way, how far are you willing to go in breaking your defense mechanism? Don't look for answers for me. I mean, I'm like with you. I have no idea. I think it's very subjective. I think it's also vary from one year to another. But we definitely understand here what, according to Rav Soloveitchik, the idea of confession is not just to verbalize your sins and just to, remind you that what you did. It's more than that. This is, in a way, this is like the main thing. If you don't do it right, your tshuva is not that great. Let's put it like that. So, by the way, just as a side note, and I'll conclude, is that Rav Soloveitchik does not speak only about mitzvot sheben adam lamakom, between you and God. It's also between you and your friend, which there, I think, it's even more complicated and even harder than mitzvot ben adam lamakom. To confess, you You go to your spouse, or you go to your child, or you go to your friend, and you say, I am sorry. You look at him in his eye. You say, I am so sorry that I did A, B, and C. It's not like in the morning you say, oh, I'm sorry. Or like on Yom Kippur, many times you say, if I hurt you, I'm sorry. No, באמת, זה נחמד, but it's not the real thing. It's just to really face the person and to detail or to go through the sin and to really say to him, look, I was wrong here and I was wrong. זה hard. So, and yeah.
And in doing so, he reveals to the other person something the other person wouldn't know.
So we spoke about it last week. You need to be careful. Yeah. You need to have שכר הפסדה, you need to have the שכר והפסד. So then you need to make a decision. Okay, that's for today. Hopefully next time, Bezrat Hashem will conclude. Shana Tova.